Good morning. So I like to start my talks usually the same way, which is to say that at my core, I'm a teacher. It's something I've done for a long time, it's something I've done in a lot of places, and it's something I'm incredibly passionate about and that I love doing. One of my favorite quotes of all time comes from Abraham Lincoln. And Abraham Lincoln said, "Whatever you are, be a good one." And when it comes down to it, I'm hard-pressed to think of better words to live your life by. When you're a husband, you should be a good husband. When you're a volunteer, you should be a good volunteer. When you're cleaning your room, you should be a good room cleaner. So because I was a teacher, I tried to be a good teacher. And I spent a lot of time thinking about what makes a good teacher, right? What makes a phenomenal educational experience for my students? And as my career grew, my question grew, and it became, how can we provide that amazing educational experience to every student everywhere in the world? And it's a big question, right? And so in 1963, where I come from, this is what the answer looked like. This is probably what the answer looked like where most of you came from. It's probably what the answer looked like for most of the world. And we have to assume that in the last 50 years, we've come up with some great, innovative, amazing answers, and that education, as it's grown as a public institution, has revolutionized around the world. But the fact of the matter is, I can guess what kind of classroom I'm going to be walking into in 90% of the classrooms in the world, or maybe more, right? And we have to ask ourselves, how did we decide that this is the best angle to learn from? Right? Did hundreds of researchers spend thousands of hours to decide, yes, the back of these children's heads really prime our brain for learning math? Really, it's based on this assumption that all of our students go into school the same way, that all of their brains work the same way, that every student in every culture essentially functions on the same dynamics. But really, this is how our students enter school. And this is how our students in different cultures, in different places in the world, all see the world and experience the world and have points of view on the world. So when we're designing education, we need to be thinking of different ways to do it. We need to be designing educational systems that encourage collaboration, that get students out of those desks, that let them express themselves and be themselves in different and exciting ways. Because the fact of the matter is, it takes a pretty bleak situation for me to look at it and say, phenomenal learning can't occur here. I think it's possible to do this in Cambodia. I think it's possible to do this in any developing country in the world using the resources we have here. I believe this so strongly that I've started an organization whose goal is to teach people that we can, yes, we can provide a world-class educational opportunities on any budget. Because when I look at Cambodia, I see an amazing opportunity. Right? We have this opportunity to take a new education system that's just building itself and grow it into something amazing. Where I come from, and in many parts of the world, we have great teachers, and we have great schools, but they're trapped in this system that's not designed for them. They're trapped in this system that says, no, you're going to stand up in front of these kids who are all going to be seated in rows. And then they get creative, and they work through the system, and they work around it, and they build special charter schools, and they design special activities during their class day. But ultimately, they have to work beyond this system that's holding them back. If in Cambodia we can be courageous and say, no, we're not going to do that. We're not going to build those messed up systems. We're going to start with what we know about education today. We're going to reinvent this wheel. You might end up with something better, right? You might end up with a system that encourages every student, that encourages those amazing, independent, creative teachers to be independent, amazing, and creative, to come up with ideas and answers to that big, big question that's better than any system has done in the past. So how do we do it? Right? What are the tools we need to change education in Cambodia in a way that makes it better than some of the richest countries in the world? So as I told you, I'm a teacher, and I like to give talks the way I teach class. And something you'll learn from my talk is that I think a teacher who dispenses answers is about as useful as a dictionary sitting next to a computer. So what I'm going to give you today are ways to think about education, right? Ways to look at this big, big problem and come up with answers that are as diverse and amazing as the people sitting in this audience. First and foremost, we need to believe in the young people that we're raising today. And we need to believe in our programs. And we need to rethink sustainability when we think about education. Currently, when I hear sustainability talked about in education, the question is usually, how can we make sure this tiny farming village can afford to maintain this school in 20 years when we're gone? But the question should be, how can we make a school that ensures that this is not a tiny farming village in 20 years? right? Our education programs should die and become defunct because they don't need them anymore, because we've done such a good job raising up the young people that they're motivated and empowered members of the 21st century global economy. And if we don't believe our programs can do this, it won't get done. And if we don't believe the young people that we're putting through our programs are going to grow up to engage the 21st century economy, they won't. So because of that, we have to rethink what education is about. There was a time when information was incredibly useful, when having a lot of facts in your head empowered you to go out and get an amazing job. That time has passed. We don't need information holders. We need information brokers, right? The students we're raising, we have to believe, are going to be part of this 21st century global economy, and they're going to have access to information in such great quantity that having it in their heads is useless. They need to be able to acquire it, rearrange it, turn it into amazing new pieces of information and amazing new skills and amazing new technologies, and then discard it when they don't need it anymore. Also, if they're going to be successful at this, we need to say that failure is awesome, right? If we design systems where a student who gets an F in 5th grade carries that F with them throughout their entire lives, and it affects the classes they get into in junior high school, which affects the classes they get into in high school, which affects the university they get into, we're going to create failure phobes. We're going to create students who are unwilling to try difficult things. What we want are students who are willing to say, yes, you know what, I'm going to take calculus. I might not pass it. I might not even get a B in it, but I'm going to take it, and I'm going to push myself, and I'm going to try that. And it's not going to hold me back for the rest of my life. Because I was daring and took calculus my 10th grade year, it's not going to affect whether or not I get into a university after I graduate. We need to encourage collaboration. If we're developing these students who create all of these amazing ideas, we need to teach them to share their ideas. If we create a farmer who can double his rice yield in a year, and he doesn't tell anybody about it, we haven't improved the country. We've just improved the farmer. We need to encourage diverse talents. And this isn't just about the arts. The arts are incredibly important and should be a part of school, but there are even more abstract talents that are even less often on the table when we talk about education. If we have 5 amazing mathematicians who can't get to an answer, and 1 incredibly motivated social leader who leads them to the solution, who's the more valuable member of that team? Traditional education would say that every single one of those mathematicians is more valuable, but they wouldn't have done anything without that one leader. And so we need to design systems that encourage students, if they're great leaders, to be great leaders. And tell them that's okay that you're not a great mathematician because you're creating better math than any of these mathematicians could alone because you know how to get them there. We need to shed technology envy. If I went back to that classroom in 1963 and I said, okay, we're going to give you and all of your students a device. You can use this device to send a short message and sometimes a long message to any of your students, anywhere they are in the country, at any time of day or night. If they're sick, you can send them their homework. If they don't come to school, you can find out why, and the cost is relatively negligible. How would you change education? I don't think this is the answer we'd get, right? We're sitting on technology and we're sitting on tools that teachers would have killed for 50 years ago, and we're ignoring it. We're holding out for something better because somebody else has it. But that's not the best way to do it, right? So finally, we need to invest in our teachers, right? We need to, something that's happened a lot in the West is there's this assumption that teachers will automatically fail, right? For whatever reason, whether it's lack of training, lack of professional development, lack of resources, the assumption is that teachers are not going to be incredibly successful. And so we invest all this money and all this time and all these resources safeguarding against failure. Who starts a business with the assumption that all of your employees will fail and you need to spend the vast majority of your money safeguarding against failure? All of the images in this talk, everything I've said in this talk, can be considered to be part of the Creative Commons. The Creative Commons is a way to share information and ideas and media and words and everything you do and make it available to the world. Something you can do right now to improve education in the developing world is make sure that everything you create that you don't plan to make money off ends up in the Creative Commons. And there are lots of different ways to do that. You can go to creativecommons.com to check it out, or openequalfree.org/creativecommons to see how it can affect education. Thank you very much.